Sarah Chen was a seasoned night nurse at Mercy Hospital with 3 years under her belt. She thought she'd witnessed it all. The frantic aftermath of car accidents, the desperate attempts to revive overdose victims, and the peaceful passing of elderly patients in their sleep. Death was just a part of the job, a grim reality you learn to accept, almost to respect. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared her for the events of October 15th, 2019. The shift began like any other Thursday. Sarah clocked in at 11 p.m., gathered her patient charts, and started her rounds on the fourth floor, the oncology ward. This was known as the quiet floor. Most of the patients here were too drained by their battles to cause much drama, too exhausted for late-night emergencies. The ward was usually a place of slow, steady decline, its silence broken only by the rhythmic hum of 4 machines. Room 412 was supposed to be empty. It had been vacant for 2 full weeks, ever since its last occupant, Mr. Harrison, had passed away. Following protocol, the room was meticulously cleaned, sanitized, and sealed, awaiting the next admission. But as Sarah walked past it at precisely 11:47 p.m., a sound reached her ears that made her stop dead in her tracks, humming. It was a woman's voice, soft and strangely melodic, humming a tune that sounded like an old lullaby. Sarah stood frozen in the hallway, her hand still resting on the cool metal of the medication cart. The sound was unmistakably coming from inside room 412. She peered through the small, reinforced window in the door. The room was shrouded in darkness, completely empty. Yet the humming continued, a gentle melody rising and falling in the still night air. "Hello?" Sarah's voice was a cautious whisper. She pushed the door open, the hinges groaning softly. The room was exactly as she remembered it, exactly as it should be. The bed was stripped down to the bare mattress. The vital signs monitors were unplugged, their screens dark and lifeless. The visitor's chair was pushed firmly against the far wall. There was absolutely no one inside. The moment she stepped into the room, the humming stopped. A chilling coldness, a feeling that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning, began to creep up her spine. She backed out slowly, her mind racing to find a logical explanation. It must have been the pipes, she told herself, or maybe the wind whistling through a ventilation shaft. Or perhaps it was just sheer exhaustion playing tricks on her after working too many double shifts. She pulled the door shut and tried to continue her rounds, but her hands were trembling as she dispensed medications to her other patients. At 1:33 a.m., the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The call button for room 412 lit up at the nurse's station, its soft glow a beacon of impossibility. Sarah stared at it, her heart pounding against her ribs. Call buttons don't work unless they're plugged in. The system was designed that way. And even if it could, there was no one in that room to push it. She glanced over at Marcus, the other night nurse on duty. He had seen it too, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You gonna answer that?" he asked, a nervous edge to his voice. He made no move to get up from his chair. "That room's empty, Marcus. Then why is the light on?" he retorted. With a deep, steadying breath, Sarah walked down the long, echoing hallway. Her footsteps seemed unnaturally loud on the polished linoleum floor. The call light above the door to 412 flashed insistently. She took hold of the handle, turned it, and pushed the door open once more. The room was just as before, dark, empty. But this time, something was different. Something was terribly wrong. The chair, it had moved. It was no longer against the wall. It was now positioned directly beside the stripped mattress, as if someone had pulled it over to sit vigil at the bedside. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. She distinctly remembered pushing that chair against the wall herself. She was absolutely certain of it. She approached it cautiously, her nurse's shoes making no sound, and that's when she saw it. An indentation. The cushion was pressed down, shaped by the weight of a person who had just been sitting there. Hesitantly, she reached out a hand and touched the fabric. It was so warm. She didn't scream. She didn't make a sound. She simply turned and ran, her professionalism dissolving into pure primal fear. She didn't stop until she was back at the relative safety of the brightly lit nurse's station. Marcus tried to calm her down, offering rationalizations that even he didn't seem to believe, but he couldn't explain the chair. Neither could the security guard who came up to investigate. He did a sweep of the room, found nothing, and returned looking pale. "Look, I'll be real with you," the guard said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "This floor, the fourth floor, people see things. Hear things. Especially in 412. That room's got a reputation." "What kind of reputation?" Sarah demanded, her voice shaking. "You ever wonder why it stays empty longer than the other rooms?" Administration knows. They won't admit it, but they know. The people who stay in that room, they don't usually leave alive. And even after they're gone, Duddle. He trailed off, his eyes darting towards the closed door down the hall. "Well, let's just say some people believe they never really leave at all." Sarah wanted to dismiss it, to laugh it off as hospital folklore. She was a woman of science, of facts and medicine. She dealt in the tangible, the explainable, but she couldn't deny the chilling evidence of her own senses. The disembodied humming, the impossibly activated call light, the relocated chair, the lingering warmth. At 3:15 a.m. it started again. This time, the humming was louder, more distinct. It filled the hallway, an ethereal and sorrowful tune coming from behind the door of 412. But now, it was accompanied by another sound. Footsteps. Slow, shuffling footsteps, like someone restlessly pacing back and forth within the empty room. Sarah grabbed Marcus by the arm, her grip tight. "Listen," she whispered. He fell silent, his head tilted. His eyes widened. He heard it too. They both did. The humming and the pacing, a phantom presence making itself known. "We need to go in there," Marcus finally said, though his voice betrayed the fear he was trying to hide. "Are you insane?" Sarah shot back. "Think about it," he reasoned, his voice low. "If someone's actually in there, we have to know. It could be a disoriented patient who wandered in. It could be a homeless person who snuck past security. We have a duty to check." He was right, and she knew it. As terrifying as the prospect was, they couldn't ignore it. Together, they walked back down the silent corridor, the sounds from room 412 growing louder with each step. They reached the door and paused, a shared look of dread passing between them. Marcus reached for the handle, his hand hesitating for a fraction of a second before he turned it and pushed the door wide open, flooding the room with the harsh light from the hallway. The humming and the footsteps stopped instantly. The room was, once again, completely empty. The chair was still by the bed, the indentation on its cushion a silent testament to what Sarah had found earlier. They scanned every corner, checked the small adjoined bathroom, and looked under the bed frame. There was no one. There was nowhere to hide. Defeated and more confused than ever, they backed out and closed the door. They spent the rest of the night at the nurse's station, jumping at every little sound, their eyes constantly drifting towards the dark end of the hall where room 412 waited. As the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky, Sarah found herself pulling up old hospital records on her computer. She searched for the name of the previous patient, Mr. Harrison. His file was routine, a sad but typical story of a man in his late 70s succumbing to a long battle with cancer. But then she clicked on his visitor logs. There was only one name listed, repeated day after day, night after night: Eleanor Harrison, his wife of 52 years. She had sat by his side, holding his hand, humming his favorite lullaby until the very end. Curiosity piqued, Sarah did a quick public records search for Eleanor Harrison. The result hit her like a physical blow. According to the city's records, Eleanor Harrison had passed away in a car accident on October 13th, 2019, 2 days before her husband died alone in room 412. Sarah Chen never worked another night shift on the fourth floor. The official story was that she transferred to the EA for a more fast-paced environment. But the nurses who knew her, the ones who heard whispers of what happened that night, understood the real reason. Some things you can't explain with science. Some duties don't end with death. And in the quietest corners of Mercy Hospital, some say a devoted wife still keeps her vigil, forever humming a lullaby in the darkness of room 412. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more chilling tailies. See you next time.